It's time for Real Talk with Brian and Dan, the weekly talk radio show dedicated to discussing important real estate topics, plus insight into the local community. With a combined experience of over 50 years as local real estate brokers from the East Side Real Estate Team at Keller Williams Realty Bellevue. Here's your hosts, Brian Levitt and Dan Edwards.
Good afternoon and welcome to Real Talk with Brian and Dan on 1150 KKNW. It is Wednesday, September 18th, 2019. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you for listening. As you know, if you're listening at a different time, you're welcome to download our podcast anywhere podcasts can be found. I get them on Google Podcasts because I'm a Google freak, Apple Podcast. You can find them, tune in, a lot of different programs you can download and listen to Brian and I like nonstop if you want to. It'd be kind of cool. Anyways, I'm very excited for our show today and very excited for our two guests. We have Debbie Rosemont with Simply Placed and Scott Didion with Green City Pest Control. But of course, as always, before we get into that, we have some real talk.
Dan, today we're going to discuss how access to your home plays a major role when selling. If you can't see it, you can't sell it. Yep. Most experts can tell you there are four elements to a quality listing: access, condition, financing, and price. There's a reason that access tops that list.
So there's many different levels, right, of access that your agent can provide to the public. 5 different levels, to be specific, that you can provide for a buyer.
So the first of these levels is a lockbox. We use a Supra. It's a smart key box. It's amazing technology because when a broker accesses one of my key boxes to show the listing, I get an email within seconds telling me who they are. And obviously, well, it's not obvious. I'll explain it. They can't access the box unless they're current with with Northwest Multiple Listing Service and they know their secret code.
Which means they're fully licensed.
That's right.
They pass the state exam.
Screened,
they're in good standing.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah. So before we get into some of the deeper access, Brian, why is it so important?
Because, again, if you can't see it, you can't sell it. Getting buyers in there is key to selling that home. The access of a key box allows brokers to schedule showings at a time that works for the buyers as well as the broker. And often buyers are looking at multiple homes, so having the ability to just schedule, and we use an application called Showing Time to do the scheduling. So it's semi-automated because it makes the request, and then the seller or the listing broker confirms that request, but it allows people to access in a timely manner at the times that work for them.
Yeah, and I want to break down. So the Supra Box is Bluetooth enabled. It's technology enabled. It's linked to our smartphones as agents, and it's linked to the Showing Time app as well. This isn't a plug for Showing Time. This is more of a plug for
the technology.
For the technology, and what we do to ensure that our buyers can get unfettered access as much as possible.
Right.
So what do you do when you have a seller that maybe it may be a challenge for them to get out of the house for the showing? Because that's something we didn't even
Well, we
mention.
typically work by appointment. And so the seller has a say in how we schedule, and we can tell the brokers through Showing Time how much lead time is needed, typically 1 or 2 hours, and we show by appointment. So the seller has control. We're going to talk about other forms of access, but hands down, the very best method in terms of getting their home sold quickly and for the highest price is the use of a Super Key Box and Showing Time.
Yeah, and an open calendar.
That's right.
So let me tell you my story. This last week, a wonderful couple that we helped in Renton, they're retiring. They're moving to Medford, but they're retired. They live in the house. So they said, how are we going to schedule this? What should we do? And what do you say when somebody says, well, I'll just kind of move into one of the rooms while they show? What do you say to a seller about that?
It's best. There's a psychology to selling where a buyer has to mentally move themselves in. People always talk about overcoming objections. Objections are a good thing. People don't object to a house they're not interested in buying.
Right.
And so getting the seller out of there, so number one, they're not hearing the objections because there's a psychology to that buyer needing to make themselves at home.
Verbalize
and if the seller's there, they don't want to invade. I mean, I think it's something deep in human psychology. They don't want to invade the other person's space.
They don't want to hurt their feelings.
So I tell my clients, let's do it right and let's get it done fast. Reserve a table at Starbucks and get out of the house. Let me do my job.
Yeah, so the Showing Time, basically, it'll send a request for an appointment.
Right.
And if if you're like me, my clients, they weren't tech savvy at all. They didn't want to use an app. They didn't do that. So we just called them. We had a phone call. And actually, no, that's not what we did. I'll tell you what we did. We actually, they're moving to Medford. So I said, well, why don't you guys go check out homes in Medford this weekend? So
Smart.
I had
Yeah.
them just get out of the house, which then allowed every appointment that they wanted to come in when they wanted to.
Right.
And that's like the highest level of access. It's wide open. Go ahead.
And I often sit down right up front and write out a schedule with them and say, these are the times I'd like to have unfettered access.
Yeah.
And so they look at their week. They say, okay, I've got to be, I'll be gone at work in these hours. So we just map out a time, confirm it on a calendar, and I just grant access as the requests come in based on the calendar that they and I created.
Yeah.
And that works great.
Yeah. And we can't always have that, but I certainly would agree with you. Like, have that seat at Starbucks, right? Up the way, where you can get out of the house to provide access at any amount of time. Because essentially, when somebody lists a home, even if they've lived there for 30 years, it's now a public place. It's
I don't know if it's public.
I know
that. It's just the access.
It's
the other issue is sometimes there's pets we got to deal with. So having them vacate with the pet.
Yeah.
Because pets will block a lot of people from that buying decision.
So what about something that has to be more restrictive? Let's say a tenant occupied. What do you do then?
Oh, gosh. Get the tenant out.
Get the tenant out.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I've been selling longer than I should. I have never had a tenant that cooperated to the level that an owner would. Right. Mm-hmm. And I've even had tenants just tell people why they shouldn't buy the house.
Right.
They're outmotivated. They don't want to move.
Right.
And so what I tell my sellers is ideally we time it so that the tenant's out, we're ready to go on market, hit it hard and get it sold,
right?
Minimize vacancy.
So if you can't get the tenant out, then you have to follow the law. And what's the law say with regards to showings?
Tenants' rights, 24-hour written notice. And it's pretty rare that I've had anybody really invoke that. But I work cooperatively with them. We play nice and get their cooperation as best we can.
Right.
And talk to them about their schedule and then work those showings around their schedule.
Right.
So
now, what do you say to somebody who absolutely positively wants you to be there for all appointments?
We can accommodate that, but it's really not necessary. But in a situation where somebody really wants that, that's something that can be accommodated.
And I think it's important to say that, right? Because we certainly want to make sure that we say, well, here, it's on their own. Because a lot of times, I think we've got a lot of great agents out there.
Right.
But they don't always communicate the values the way that you and I would on behalf of our clients. And I know I've sat in an open house and been able to, share with a couple coming through the home enough information to help them move forward.
So something I almost always do is have my listings shown by appointment only. Mm-hmm. And the reason is that gives me a chance to call that broker and give them the highlights of the home and talk them through that so they can do a better job showing. So I'm very diligent about talking to those brokers before they show the home.
Well, another way to do that our team does is silent talkers in the house.
Right.
So that would be, when you have a home that's rich in features, as you're walking through, I've got a client I met with, and he was pointing out the LED lighting here, there, the things that are small things that mean a lot to him and may mean a lot to a future buyer.
Yeah, a silent talker is just a card that we put up that points out the feature. So we put those up throughout the house.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for the clarification.
So access, what else? There's more thoughts here, I think.
Yeah, so I think the bottom line is if you're looking to sell your home, the goal is to have as much access as possible. If you can't, another analogy would be, imagine if you wanted to go test drive a car and they're like, well, can you come back tomorrow? I mean, whose schedule do you want to be on?
Yeah, and I mean, here's the reality is, as a broker, we're juggling, the buyer's schedule, the seller's schedule, and our own schedule.
Right.
And so making it easy, I tell my sellers, you turn away a buyer, there's a good chance they're never coming back. And because another thing is, the brokers look at a seller who doesn't allow access as an unmotivated seller who they don't want to work with.
Right.
And I've had clients turn away buyer after buyer, not realizing the harm to themselves, but also the work that you and I do, that Dan and I do, to get those people there in the first place.
Well, and actually, that's funny that you mentioned that, because you think about the time or a life of a listing, right? Mm-hmm. When it first comes on, that first week is crucial.
That's the hot item.
Right? So it may be something where people say, well, we can't work around our schedule, we can't do that. And then suddenly that home's on the market now a little bit longer than is normal.
Right.
And then you have buyers saying, well, what's wrong with that house?
Right.
So
it gets shop worn. So
after
a while.
I think the long story on that is to really kind of consider what your strategy is for allowing access to the home. Brian and I would both agree, as much unfettered access as possible, go there. We can accommodate everything, but what we want to do is make sure that as many obstacles to somebody seeing that home to make a purchasing decision, to get the information, We provide hot sheets. We provide the silent talkers. We provide all the information so that when somebody gets there, then they can actually get the information they need.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I think another thing is the two big objections that I hear are their schedule, the sellers, their needs, but also security for their home.
Yeah.
And in all the years and the thousands of homes I've sold, I've never had a theft from a home being shown. People are worried about that sometimes.
Right.
And I always coach my clients to put away everything that's highly valuable and highly portable, guns, coin collections, jewelry,
Watches.
off premises.
Yep.
Put them somewhere else. I've never had a problem, but I don't want to start.
Yeah.
But also remember, we totally know who's going in there. With that key box, we're informed that broker is in a relationship with that buyer, or they're not showing them, and we know who the broker is.
Well, let's put it this way. Nowadays, a lot of homes have cameras.
That's right.
Right? So if you have the ability to put a camera on, and I think we talked about
Oh,
this
yeah.
on an early
Yeah.
episode, buyer's agents, make sure that you know that you're on camera. If you walk up to a house that has the doorbells with the cameras on it.
Yeah. And I'm not going to entertain a discussion on the legality of that, but I coach my buyers that there's times I'm showing a home and they love it and they want to start talking about their negotiating strategy.
it's like, shh,
nope,
don't.
take it outside. And I've actually had that happen where I've had a call later where there was information relayed that I knew that we were videoed or there was audio. They knew what we were talking about.
Yep.
And it's like I'm just very careful to coach my clients. We talk outside.
Loose lips, sink
Sink
ships.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think the idea there, though, is from an openness standpoint and a security standpoint, you can put a camera there. It's your right to have that in your house. But kind of be understanding that as you're a buyer, gosh, you're on camera.
The cameras today are so small and so inexpensive. I think as a buyer, expect that you're on camera.
I got caught on camera.
Oh, yeah? Tell me.
There was a bear that showed up in the backyard, and I walked out backyard, and I was like, whoa! I freaked out and ran back into the house, and I realized, oh, no, I'm on camera. So I asked my seller, because it was his house, I was like, hey, did you happen to get me
Did you get
freaking
that?
out? On the
Did they?
camera? They did.
Yeah.
I trashed
that's funny.
I threw away the footage, so we don't have that anymore.
Oh, darn. That'd be fun.
I thought that was pretty funny, though.
I've had a couple times where stuff has surfaced later where it's like,
oh,
yeah, we were being watched. And that, I've had people say, oh, it's creepy. And it's like, no, you're in somebody. I mean, again, I don't even know the legality of this.
Right.
It's probably not legal to videotape somebody without their consent, but you're in somebody else's home. And so,
I wonder, so do you think we should put a thing that says video camera recording?
On our home, on our listings?
No. If somebody walks into a house on a and there was a video camera there, you might want to put a little placard that says,
that's a
smile, you're
lawyer
on
question.
camera.
Yeah. But I'm very careful to counsel my buyers that we take the discussions outside.
So the future of showing houses could be a video camera and an automated lockbox on the front door.
Yeah, there's a market. I read a story that they're doing that.
Yeah.
That the buyers can call in and get an access code and go take a look. I don't think. I recognize the value of a competent broker really walking people through the process.
Well, and that's a good point too. Yeah.
But no, I think it's changing times. What experience has taught me is the more we can cooperate with the buyers to get showings, the more exposure we have, the more and better offers we get. So it's just part of our marketing strategy to make that home completely accessible.
As accessible as possible.
Right.
You have options. We'd love to talk to you. If you're thinking about selling your home and you want to consider how to provide access in any kind of situation, you've heard Brian and I talk about it. Well, that concludes our Real Talk segment for today. That was a good one, Brian.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the conversation. Next up, after our break, we're going to be hearing from Debbie Rosemont with Simply Placed, who will be discussing professional organizing and how it can help you manage your time. Join us after this break.
We'll be right back.
Not sure if now is the right time to sell? Worried you missed the market? The Eastside Real Estate Team specializes in helping homeowners maximize their equity when selling. With our proven premier listing service, our clients have sold their homes for more money in less time than the competition. We know you have many choices when working with a real estate agent, but with the Eastside Real Estate Team, you get a team of highly qualified, experienced agents. From staging to deciding if your property is market ready for top dollar. If you're considering selling, call the Eastside Real Estate Team at 425-200-4093. or check out our website at the eastsiderealestateteam.com, a subsidiary of Keller Williams Realty in Bellevue.